Snow has an important property called albedo, which describes how much sunlight a surface reflects. Fresh, clean snow has a very high albedo, reflecting about 80 to 90% of incoming sunlight. In some cases, very fine powdery snow can reflect up to 95% of sunlight, making it one of the most reflective natural surfaces on Earth. This high reflectivity helps keep surface temperatures colder by sending solar energy back into space. Snow appears bright white because it reflects light especially well in the visible spectrum. As snow ages, its crystal structure changes and grains grow larger. These changes allow the snow to absorb more sunlight, lowering albedo values closer to 0.4 or less. Dirt, dust, soot, or pollution can also dramatically reduce snow's reflectivity. When that happens, snow absorbs more heat and melts faster. This process plays a key role in what scientists call the ice albedo feedback. As snow melts, darker ground or water is exposed underneath. Darker surfaces absorb more sunlight, leading to additional warming. So remember this, that bright, blinding snow isn't just beautiful, it's one of Earth's strongest natural cooling mechanisms.